Do all of you agree that we're going from a lower level to a higher level of understanding?
Yeah.
And when do we think more? At the lower level. And when do we have more stress? At the lower level. When do we make more decisions? The lower level. Now, the biggest problem a young person may have is they never get out of that position. And for some reason, they don't understand who they are. Okay? Because they're having such a hard time at that lower level that they give up. You can never do this. Okay, let me explain why. When I was young, I was the third of three. The first thing I clearly understood was I was a mistake. Okay, my parents only wanted 2 kids, not 3. In fact, my mother thought she was sick. And then she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "You're pregnant." So I was like, by mistake, which means no resources were planned for me at all, right? I felt like I was born in ignorance, and like they put me aside, and I was there for my older brother, who was 4 years old, to beat up on me, right? And I kind of had this fear of my older brother. And I didn't realize why anything was going on. And so my whole world was my home. I had a hard time going to school, right? I mean, I kept wondering, why was I born in this role? In fact, I was so afraid of people that when I met somebody who was really beautiful, like I had this beautiful aunt, I used to go hide myself in the closet. And if there was no closet, then I would hide behind my mother, and if I could hear her voice, I would cry. I was that afraid, right, as a young boy. And I never understood why I was there in my family, why I was the third, and it seemed like I didn't really get anything, because anything of any value went to my older brother and sister. And my parents were trying to control them. So, you know, I'm looking around wondering, why am I who I am? And why don't I understand more about what's going on around me? And I still remember, it wasn't until high school that I began to see some of my talents. But even after I saw my talents, I'm stuck on the island of Oahu. The longest airplane ride I ever took was to Kauai, which was 40 minutes away. And, you know, I never thought that I would see anything in my life. I would just be in Hawaii the whole time. And now, I was talking to my kids. I have traveled on Delta alone 3.25 million miles. So if you take all my miles, in actuality what I've done, and you say I just went to Europe, I've taken 200 trips to Europe. Right. And every time I go somewhere, I'm there for at least a week, which means I'm somewhere else for 200 weeks, which is we got 50 weeks in a year, so that I'm someplace in another part of the world for 4 years. Right? And I never thought I would do this. And I never thought I would be able to go and have an impact on people. And now our major efforts are in the Netherlands, and we're now in Norway, and it's going to be in Poland, in Saudi Arabia, and in India. Those are our major efforts. Right? But I never thought I would do that when I was a young kid, because I was so afraid, because I didn't know anything. At which point do we think that we're more disconnected from everybody around us? Do you understand what I mean by disconnected? Like, remember you came up to me yesterday and you said, I don't understand what's on my parents' minds. Right?
Yeah.
See, my challenge to you is you're going to have to figure that out.
I've always come up with wacky solutions to that.
But you're going to have to figure that out. Why? Because do you think they're totally disconnected to you? No, they're connected. They're connected to you in some way. So what am I saying? Why do we have people in our environment? Is it easier to look at somebody else and understand who they are? Or is it easier looking at ourselves and trying to figure out who we are? What do you think?
Ourselves.
So hard looking at yourself. It's almost impossible. I mean, because you just can't understand who you are. It's easier looking at other people and trying to figure out who they are. But see, the trick here is, if you can actually look at your close friends and understand who they are, that is probably the most accurate description of who we are. So we actually somehow have to mingle with a close few people and understand who they are, and it begins to help us understand who we are. I can't begin to tell you, at college, how many kids, I ask them, how many of you want to be like your parents? At least 50% say, I never want to be like my parents. And I have to tell them, so many people have told me that they're not going to be like their parents. But every occurrence that I have seen, when the younger people get older and they get stressed, they immediately start acting like who?
Their parents.
Their parents. Right? That's natural law. I mean, you can't run away from that. And so, like if I talk to a child, I can begin to understand who their parent is. Or if I talk to the parent, I can begin to understand what the child may act like. Because they're both what? Connected. Yeah, that's a natural law. That makes sense to everybody? Now, what I can propose to you is, don't give up on yourself. Never give up on yourself. Because you're too what? Young. Right? And you can't really sometimes picture in your mind where you're headed.